Chairperson, you on mute, Chairperson.
Yo, I was muted. Apologies, sincere apologies, honorable members. I've been talking and then it looked like I was talking to myself. Good afternoon, honorable members. It has gone past 2 o'clock. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Honorable members, can you hear me?
Yes, Chair, we can hear you.
Honorable Maseko, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you,
I
Chair.
see, but I can't hear you. Lizette, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chairperson. I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, my volume was off. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sincere apologies. The volume on my laptop was off. Sincere apologies. We are learning with this in this technology world every day. Good afternoon, honorable members. It has gone past 2. I want us to start our meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Can I get an indication of the honorable members of the committees that are present and those that are alternate as well?
Matlodi Maseko, good afternoon, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko.
Chair, Derek America.
Thank you very much, Honorable America.
Member Christopher Fry, standing in for Member Isaac Seleku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fry. I did get an indication that you were going to be representing Honorable Seleku. Now, also honorable members.
Kasim is online as well.
Oh yes, Honorable Kasim, thank you very much. I did see you online. Also, honorable members, on the administration component, we've got Ms. Lizette Klute, who's our senior procedural officer. In the administration further, Ms. Masintle Mkhubata, as well as Wasim Matthews, and also Siraj on the IT level. I have also requested Mr. Lubabalo Stemele to be in attendance just to deal with item 1. He'll probably be with us for 10 or 15 minutes, even less than that, so that we can just have the item explained and put to rest. But before we may move to the next item on the agenda, it will be, can I get an indication, honorable members, of, or Ms. Klute, are there any apologies that you might have received maybe?
I have not received any other apologies. Wasim,
Okay.
did you receive any apologies?
Chairperson, through you, none received to date.
Thank you very much, Wasim. Then, honorable members, it's not a question, just for information purposes, because of the nature of the item, as you know that we are not going to be dealing with it, the item that deals with the Department of Environmental Affairs as well as the Financial and Fiscal Commission, but we subsequently is an item that has had to be withdrawn from the agenda based on the information that we have received. And of course, I know also there were also honorable members that have approached me regarding the matter, so that we can officially put the item to rest. I requested Mr. Babalo Stemele just to explain the procedure so that we can move to the next item. Mr. Stemele.
Good afternoon, members and colleagues.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I received a request for a procedural advice to provide a procedural advice in relation to one of the resolutions of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts regarding the request for the Minister of Finance to appear in front of the committee in providing so as to be able to explain the issue of appropriation of the budget of a particular entity. Then when we looked at this, we said, okay, firstly, let us understand what is it that the committee is empowered with in terms of the Constitution. And Section 115A states that the committee can summon any person to appear before it, to give evidence on oath or affirmation, or to produce documents, and the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to determine and control its internal arrangements. Subsection C says further, to compel in terms of the provincial legislation or the rules and orders any person or institution to comply with a summons or requirement in terms of paragraph A or B. Further, Section 116 of the Constitution again empowers the WCPP now as the provincial legislature to determine and control its internal arrangements, proceedings, and procedures, and to make rules and orders concerning its business with due regards to representative, participatory, democracy, accountability, transparency, and public involvement. This is among other things then that we have as part of those determining those internal arrangements are the standing rules of the institution. Now, looking at our standing rules, Standing Rule 102 states that if the Public Accounts Committee is of the view that a report of financial statement raises issues relating to the policy of a particular department, the committee then must inform the Speaker, that is number one, and such a report or statement must either be considered by both the Public Accounts Committee and another relevant committee, or by a joint meeting of both committees. Then the Public Accounts Committee must advise the Speaker whether a joint meeting or separate meetings are appropriate. So this means, Chair, although the SCOPA has got the powers in this regard to summon anyone, but its powers based again on its objective, why the committee was established itself, are limited to as far as the expenditure and the audit issues raised by AG in the financial statements, audited financial statements. Anything that may emanate, which is policy related, which in this instance include budgeting and appropriation, will then mean that the committee, having seen that or identified that as one of the issues, has to advise the Speaker of the issue that they've identified and seek to have either a joint meeting or separate meetings with separate committees that may have exercise or that may have power to exercise oversight over such particular individual department, basically. So that means now the powers of the SCOPA will only be confined on the expenditure and AG issues. Anything that it talks to policy then has to be referred or has to be jointly attended to by SCOPA and the standing committee that is responsible for such department or entity. I'm not sure, Chair, if members have got any questions to ask.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Stemele. I think you've actually explained this loud and clear. I don't know whether are there any honorable members who would like to ask questions of point of clarity. If there is none, then Mr. Stemele, thank you very much. At least now you've explained it loud and clear. We are clear now as to what is a responsibility of us in terms of the committee. So I think we will allow you to actually leave if you would like to leave. Thank you very much, especially if there are no questions, honorable member. Thank you very much, Mr. Stemele.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Then, honorable members, we'll move then to the next item if there are no questions on that. And the next item will be the item on Casidra. Wasim or Lizette are the representative of Casidra in the house or in the meeting? Sorry.
Chairperson through you. Oh, Wasim, your mic.
Okay, no, you can go first, Lizette. I just wanted to point out the timeline issue.
Yeah. We indicated that they must be here at 2:30 because we weren't sure how long the discussion will be. But I think Wasim can call them in to join.
Chair, alternatively, the committee can discuss any other brief matters, because I'm not sure if those officials, because they've all been briefed to log in at 2:30. But if the committee wants me to call them in, I can do so to see if they're available. But the AG representatives are in the meeting. So just take guidance from you if the committee wants to discuss any other business before that, or just go straight into the Casidra and
Look,
AG matters.
Look, let's see if you can get them. If you call them in, we are just gonna hang in and be around. And then if you can't, then we are going to, maybe it's now, let's give you say 5 minutes, see if you'll be able to call them in until 20 past. You know, if they can't, then we'll know that we are going to wait for them at past. Let's break honorable members until 20 past. Thanks, honorable members. Yeah, honorable members, it's 22 minutes past. I see the delegation of Casidra hasn't joined us yet. That therefore means that we are going to start the meeting again, resume the meeting again at past. Please just hang in there. In the next 8 minutes, we are going to resume again. Thanks very much. Wasim, I see do we have the delegation from Casidra as well as the AG?
Yes, Chair, you may proceed.
Thank you very much and welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, a delegation from Casidra as well as the AG. I think as you have seen in the agenda, the purposes of us was to have a discussion together with Casidra as well as the AG regarding the predetermined objectives of the entity and to see whether how is it actually being managed so as to ensure an improved financial audit. I just want to, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hand over first to Casidra. I know there is a presentation that they have sent. They can just take us through that or talk us through that. You don't have to read it by detail. If there are any comments from the Auditor General they would like to make, they will allow them to do that. And thereafter, if honorable members got questions, we'll allow them to ask those questions. Casidra.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Thank you. Keith du Plessis speaking. Our Chief Program Officer, Mr. David Neft, will quickly take us through that slides, if you don't mind. So we will just quickly share our screen.
Thank you, no problem.
Good afternoon, members. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we just prepared some slides, members, just to indicate what Casidra has done to address the issues that was raised by the AG, and we will then just at the end, slide 5 and 6 will then give some feedback on the findings or the PDO outcomes for the 22-23 financial year, just to show that the impact of what has been done. So I will just go through the slides. So we did institute some process changes to address the issues identified. So firstly, we established a team that would look at and compile and verify the quality of the evidence that we submit as part of our EQPR. And then the information we check throughout the process to ensure correctness and completeness. And then this is done not only at the end of the quarter, but throughout the quarter by this team. And then the final checking is done by the Chief Program Officer before submitting to the EQPR at the end of the quarter. So that's basically an overview of the changes that we've made. So we've got 4 programs. Program 1 is basically our corporate services, and here's just an outlay of the process flow when it comes to program 1. So the compilation and capturing of information is done into templates by the administrator in the finance, marketing, capital, human capital departments. Then we've got compliance admin staff that check the quality of that information and the correctness of that information. Then eventually it is checked by our compliance officer that verifies the correctness of that information. And then that is finally signed off by respectively the HC manager, accountant, and our PR manager. That is now for program 1, which is our corporate services. Okay. Then for program 2, 3, and 4, that's programs that has to do with project implementation. So we've designed a graphic just to show the flow of information and how the checking happens. So normally we appoint project managers to the various projects that are being implemented in the different programs. So that's the first person that must take responsibility for quality of information submitted is that project manager. And then we've got compliance checkers. The first compliance check the information. If there's issues with the correctness, the quality of the information, that is then referred back to that project manager to correct. If correct, of course, it's moved forward to our compliance manager that checks that information. The program manager then further checks and signs off, and then that is submitted to the chief program officer, who finally signs off, and that gets submitted into our proof of evidence and eventually becomes part of our quarterly reporting and annual report. So, so that I just explained is just summarized here in the narrative form, and that basically is for program 2, 3, and 4. That's the 3 programs. Then that will basically get that verification and checking processes done on. Then, so that's what we've done, and the kind of impact it had on our current financial year outcomes in terms of PDO. So in the past, the agency just checked program 3, and now this year they checked both program 3 and 2. Both programs were checked, and we got clean audits for both of that this year, for which we are very thankful. So we got unqualified for both. And then this is just extract from the management report that we received from the AG. And I can just note there, note 35, we did not identify findings on the completeness of indicators. 36, we did not identify material findings on the overall presentation of performance information in the performance report, and we did not identify material misstatements on the reported performance information in the performance report submitted for auditing. And I think so we did get positive results from the measures that we instituted, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that short and sweet presentation that is straightforward and straight to the point. Honorable members, are there any questions that you'd like to ask? Are there any point of clarity that you'd like to have on the presentation that was given? Honorable members?
Chair, did you see my hand?
Okay, please go ahead, Honorable America.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. And thank you, Casidra, for the presentation that you have supplied us with. And congratulations on the measures that you have created and applied to address the gaps that were highlighted in the previous audit. So the question I'd like to ask, Chairperson, to Casidra is, to what extent did you involve the internal audit committee in devising this new internal control measures that were put in place? And did you consider their sort of input valuable in constructing this new process flow of dealing with internal control measures? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable America. Casidra?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this. Thank you, Honorable America. We obviously had a couple of internal discussions. We had also our Audit and Risk Committee extensively giving us inputs in terms of how they think we should tackle this problem. So it was a iterative process between ourselves and the chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee, and as well as our we also had some discussions with with our internal auditors in terms of what they think could potentially help us to assist us. That is MNV that we're using. So yeah, Chair, there was a whole bunch of people giving inputs into the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much. Chair, I just want to find out maybe what the diagnostic assessment did the Casidra have for them to come up with this solution to what was happening? Maybe where were the loopholes in the system before? Thank you, Chair.
Casidra? Can you give over to Casidra? Have we lost them? Mr. Neff and Mr. Jacobs?
Hello, Chairperson. Apologies, we seem to have lost Mr. Jacobs from Department of Agriculture. It seems as if they've just slipped off the radar quickly. I think if we can just give them a few seconds to try to reconnect.
No problem. Thank you very much. I also wanted to. Are you back, Mr. Jacobs?
Yeah. We're back, Chair. Sorry, we had a problem with our speaker.
No problem.
Yes, Chair. Yes, thank you, Honorable Maseko. I think part of our inner diagnostics on what happened and why we had the challenges. The one definite issue was the number of checkpoints that was in place previously. So previously you had an administrator and one or two persons then checking what was done, and the multiple levels of checking and rechecking and did a lot to ensure that the quality of information eventually presented to the AG for auditing was completely scrutinized, and so on. I think that is definitely a learning that we took out of this process.
Thank you very much. We just wanted to check on slide 5. I think you indicated that there were some comments that were coming from the Auditor General that gave a kind of a clean bill of health in terms of the finances or improved situation. Is this the current? How recent is that comment of the Auditor General?
Chair, this is the recent outcome of the 22-23 financial year.
Or is it the one that we are still going to sit for the annual report one?
That's process. That's correct. Yeah.
So we got a preview of what still needs to come. No, that was actually excellent, because I was actually thinking that maybe we are still referring to the previous financial year. If that is the current one, so that is actually an indication of very good things to come. And I wanted to check whether are there any comments from the Auditor General before we may round up our discussions.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm the implementation of what Casidra has said they've implemented, so I can confirm that they've implemented those measures. And then I think our recommendation is just to implement those measures sustainably, and then have internal control, internal audit, test them as part of the internal audit plan from time to time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blue. Honorable members, are there any further questions, points of clarity? I want to check if can we just get an indication, Lizette, the people from the Atlantic Special Economic Zone, are they, oh, I see you're saying they will only be able to join us at 3. Now, honorable members, if there are no further questions on the issue of CASIDRA, let me make use of the opportunity then to thank the delegation as well as the CASIDRA delegation as well as the AG and for the improved situation. And I just want to indicate that when we actually request these things, it's not that we are in any way wanting to catch you up or trying to put you in a bad light. We actually want to work with you to sincerely improve the situation. And as you can see, you have seen that it is possible. And as we've indicated that we actually got a preview before any other person could have actually got an indication of what is happening on your financial books. So thank you very much. And then we are actually looking forward to actually receiving you with your full delegation again when we are actually considering the annual report. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, AG.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Chair.
Thanks. Now, honorable members, I think while we are allowing the CASIDRA as well as the AG to exit, it looked like, again, the Atlantic Special Economic Zone can only join us at 3 unless there are some changes, Mrs. Klute.
Yes, Chairperson, through you. The representative of ACZ is here, so maybe you can ask Ms. Saib if she's ready to brief the committee or she needs more of a delegation to join.
Yes, Madam, are you ready or you need some reinforcement before you may proceed?
Good afternoon. I am online together with Frederick, our company secretary here, but I don't see our parent department representatives online yet. So I'm sure the HOD would want to do a few words before we get going, or the DDG.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think in that regard, we'll have to take another break of 12 minutes and reconvene at 3. Or if there's an indication that they are available earlier, just do indicate, Lizette, so that we can actually resume, because I believe we are all gonna hang 10, and then as soon as there is that indication, otherwise, if there is none, we are going to resume then at 3 o'clock.
Or good, agree, Chairperson.
Sure, thanks. o'clock now.
Chair, we're still waiting for members of the department. They were originally scheduled for much later, but the entity officials are all
And the
in the
HOD?
meeting.
And the HOD, is the HOD in?
Of the department, not yet, sir. I'm just doing double checks to try to get them in earlier.
Okay.
My name is Michael Webster. I'm the acting executive for the Integrated Ecosystem Management Team at the Atlanta Special Economic Zone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Pinar. I am the Sustainable Infrastructure Development and Zone Operations Specialist at the Atlantis Special Economic Zone.
Thank you, Michael. Chairperson, if I may proceed.
Yes, please.
Our presentation is basically split into twofold. The first part is an update in terms of where the SEZ is presently and the significant milestones that we've achieved over the past year. And the second part of the presentation specifically deals with the community stakeholder network and our relationship with respect to the community and how we've integrated that into the heartbeat of the organization. Maybe just to remind ourselves and the committee that the SEZ was only designated in 2018, and it was at that designation stage that it became quite clear that there was a requirement for us to have a strong bond with the community so that the community could benefit from the Atlanta Special Economic Zone. It was at that stage that we actually started a process to try and set up a community stakeholder forum. The company, the Atlantis SEZ company, was incubated within Westgrow. In 2019, it was listed as a state-owned company and as a public entity in December 2021. One of the key milestones we achieved in 2020 was signing a community stakeholder network facilitation agreement, which was an agreement between ourselves and the community sectors within the Atlantis area. In 2020, we were also able to bring on board the City of Cape Town as a shareholder into the SEZ company by transferring the land across to the 94 hectares identified in the zone to the SEZ company. And I'm quite pleased to let the committee know that we've actually moved from an establishment phase into implementation phase in September 2022. We had received funding from the DTIC to commence our civils program on Zone 1. And we awarded that to a company called WCB Construction, which they have now commenced construction on Zone 1. We officially had our start turning event with our stakeholders on the 5th of June, signaling the start of construction on Zone 1. And you can see on the 17th of May 2023, one of our first SMME work packages had commenced, and there was an orientation program that took place. Since the SEZ company was established in 2020, the investors that are highlighted in green is really our involvement in the project since then. So we've managed to basically land investment to an amount of 212 million from the initial 600 million that was in the privately owned investments. And we've managed to assist in creating 150 jobs. We're quite pleased to also share that quite recently we've signed a offer to lease with a company called Mint and Honey for the property that had become vacant in the IPROP building, known as previously as the Resolux building, which is currently tenanted by a company called New Era Roofing. However, this new investment that we are getting into the building will bring about 65 jobs and an investment worth 41.3 billion. If you had to visit us today on Zone 1, this is what you would see. Like I mentioned, civils have commenced on Zone 1. They're currently busy with the bulk earthworks. They've cleared the site, they've filled it and stabilized it, and we're busy with the boxing of the roads. In terms of investment interests, so currently the 94 hectares is made up of these parcels of land that we have available. The green blocks being those that are available, and the orange being those that we've received basically applications from investors for a landing onto those sites and possible to build factories onto those specific sites. Zone Site 11 is where the first factory will be going up for our investor that we refer to as Quantum B3 Holdings. And the design work for that is currently being finalized. We intend to advertise for that tender quite soon and hoping to construct that factory within the course of next year. In terms of the strategic positioning of the Atlantis SEZ, we strive to be a green development and destination promotion asset. And one of those key elements of our strategy is for us to be a place-based development asset driving inclusivity within the Atlantis area. And this is really where our relationship with the community becomes quite essential. I'd like to hand over to Michael Webster to take us through the CSN.
Thank you, Wahida. I'll be doing the presentation linked to the Atlantis Community Stakeholder Network. And the first few slides is just an overview of how it started, what were the processes involved, who was involved in those processes up until we had community elections and where the members formed the CSN. I think I should also just mention as part of the requirement for the stakeholder network, it was one of the key requests was that it be a true reflection of the community, and we tried our best to ensure that all sectors of society were represented on the community stakeholder network, with 8 sectors being identified and 15 seats being made available for those 8 sectors. So as I just go through the slides, you'll notice that the idea came through a public participation meeting with the SEZ project partners, which is the DTIC, DDAT, the City of Cape Town, and the community. At that meeting, it was decided to take it forward, and the DTIC sent representatives to assist the community with the request that was received. And that led to the establishment of an interim committee, which drafted the first terms of reference for the existence of the community stakeholder network. Thank you, Wahida. Elections took place, the election process took place from January to March 2019. That included roadshows, information sessions, just informing the community of what's about to happen, why is it happening, and why is it important for the community to be part of the process. That was concluded in March, where the first members of the CSN were elected, and they had their first meeting in March 2019. And from that point on, the elected members were trained and capacitated to be ready for when the SEZ company would come into being and be part of the process. Thank you, Wahida. In December 2020, the ACZ company and the CSN signed the first of its kind facilitation agreement, which basically gave a platform for the ACZ and the CSN to engage with each other, and also brought the community a whole lot closer to what the ACZ company intended to do, the plans. And I think at this point it became clear that one of the 3 pillars of the company, which is social inclusion, was then communicated to the community of Atlantis through the CSN to ensure that community participation would be communicated directly to the community. In March 2021, they adopted their constitution. The terms of reference was updated in 2022. They had a successful general elections in 2021. Apologies, they had their first general elections, annual general elections in 2021, but their first constituted general elections took place in April 2022. Thank you, Wahida. How does the CSN benefit the ACZ company? One of the methods that we use as part of our framework with engaging the communities is to ensure that every incoming delegation, whether it's an international, whether it's local, or whether it's government, we include a community component by way of either inviting the councillors or the councillors and the community, or the councillors, the community, and the CSN based on availability. The three on the slide are just examples of some of the incoming delegations where the CSN and councillors have been part of a program with the specific incoming delegations, with the likes of the British Council, a flame program that was run for 18 months, and we were successful in getting that been appointed as the service provider based on our relationship with the community. And I think one thing to mention with regards to the flame program, 3 of the CSN members were one of the 30 businesses that graduated as part of the flame program. We also had the ICLAID delegates come to Atlantis to have a look at the solar water geyser projects that was rolled out in Atlantis in water poor communities in Witsands and in Pella. Thank you, Wahida. These are some of the partners that we partner with on programs and activities in Atlantis. And part of the strategy that I mentioned before is before we roll out any programs, we communicate to the CSN the intentions of these partners by way of having a community, either through a community session or we include them in our monthly meetings with the CSN. And it's just to inform the CSN that what is being rolled out is aligned to the ACZ company, is aligned to the community needs, and it is a partner that we see value in. One that is currently rolled out now is the NBI program, and the NBI program is involved in all 3 of the work streams linked to my function as an acting executive, which is skills integration, community integration, skills development, and enterprise development. Thank you, Wahida. During COVID, we found it necessary to position the CSN as community ambassadors, and this bode very well as Dr. Corrigal was a health specialist who was involved in sectoral COVID response in Atlantis, engaged with the CSN to identify beneficiaries for masks and sanitizer. We found that using the CSN during the COVID pandemic was very useful because they bridged the gap between community and government and partnered with the ACZ company and the Department of Transport and Public Works as they looked to roll out the COVID, the masks and the vaccines to the different beneficiaries. I should also mention that the CSN members were also part of Western Cape Government's Department of Health COVID-19 video response, or video campaign where videos were recorded of the different members encouraging the local members of Atlantis, of Cape Town, and of the Western Cape to get vaccinated. Thank you, Wahida. One of the other points to mention during 2021, there was a land grab in Witsands as a result of the COVID pandemic. And the CSN was instrumental in facilitating meetings with the Witsands community to ensure that there was no impact, a further impact on the land, on the industrial land. And we found that the relationship with the CSN really created a good platform for the ACZ and the City of Cape Town, as well as the industrialists in the industrial area, to create a dialogue with the community of Witsands. And we found through that dialogue there wasn't any further land grabs, and so and there's continuous engagements in that space just to ensure that those that were impacted the most during COVID have a voice. Thank you, Wahida. Part of the work of the CSN is to build consensus in the community And one of those ways was the establishment of an infrastructure advisory working group, which was birthed through the CSN and gave us the opportunity to engage with the SMMEs that will be partaking in the civil works program, not just the SMMEs in the construction space, but all supporting services and anybody interested in benefiting from the civil works program that was going to be rolled out. The photos you see on the screen are some of the capacity building sessions that was had and the workshops had with community where various topics were discussed. Thank you, Aida. Some of the topics discussed was planning and problem solving. We focused a lot on risk mitigation and what would be the case if anything happened on the site or in Atlantis, and what is available to us as the ACZ company and the community, as well as the CSN and IWG members in terms of ensuring that there's as little risk as possible or as little interruption as possible to the civil works program. This allowed us to develop a framework for continuous dialogue and engagement with the main contractor and the local SMEs. Thank you, Wahida. In the beginning of 2023, up until the financial year end, we did a roadshow with the CSN, the IWG, the appointed contractor, WCB, and the engineering company who are acting as advisors to Tari. We did a roadshow to four roadshows in the community where we, pardon me, sorry, just somebody just wants to come in to the meeting. We communicated various opportunities that are available to the community. We explained how they can benefit from it. We also, through engagement with the IWG, were able to identify 18 work packages that the community could benefit from. And all of this was explained to the public at these roadshows. The roadshows were in the Greater Atlantis area, in the Witstrand community, Pella and Mamre. Thank you, Ada. This slide shows some of the work packages that were identified through the sessions that we had with WCB, the IWG, and Zutari. And I think it's important to note that SMME participation was prioritized during these discussions to ensure that there was little risk to the civil works program. Thank you, Wahida. Part of our duty to the communities to ensure that they remained informed, but not just informed, but there's actually skills development that happens and that our SMMEs are also capacitated. And in the last financial year, through our skills development programs, we saw a total of 440 beneficiaries be engaged. And out of those 440, 240 were trained through our skills programs. And through our enterprise development programs, we engaged with 342 business owners or businesses. And of the 342, 266 businesses were engaged, were trained. We also assisted through non-financial support. We assisted 76 walk-ins. Thank you, Aida. This slide speaks to some the strong collaboration that exists between the community and the ACZ company to ensure that local beneficiation happens. 6 SMMEs have been appointed thus far, all local SMMEs, and I should highlight 3 of the SMMEs that have been appointed in the first 6 work packages came from training programs facilitated by the ACZ company. The CSN was instrumental in this part of the work because they ensured that the civil works program and the platform that was created so that the SMMEs can benefit directly from the work that is coming into Atlantis. Thank you, Aida. Just some numbers with regards to the first three work packages. We saw 22 jobs created. Of the 22, 14 of those 22 were Atlantis-based, and the total value of the contract was 1.1 million. The second work package, which is also a local SMME, we saw 5 jobs created, of which 2 were local residents with the value of 77,000. And package number 3 was another local SMME. Their work hasn't completed yet, so we haven't been able to report on the final figures related to package number 3. And package number 4, 5, and 6 is yet to be started. Thank you, Wahida. The status of the CSN: on the 1st of April, they held their AGM. At the AGM, it was determined that the election should happen as soon as possible, and the AECs assisted the CSN with the AGM to elect new members onto the structure. On the 10th of June, those members were presented to the community, and the work continues with the new members linked to the Civil Works program, as well as other programs that are run through the company. And the CSN is committed to playing a pivotal role in the relationship that was created and remains being a key conduit between the ACZ and the community. Thank you, Wahida. Just to explain some of the amounts with regards to the spend linked directly to the members of the CSN. So each member received a total of about 866 Rand over a 12-month period, and the members averaged about 10 during that period. Some of the responsibilities that they had in relation to the community facilitation agreement that was signed was that we would have monthly meetings where we would report, where both the CSN and ACZ would give a report back. We'll have quarterly updates sessions where we keep each other informed around any work that's happening, or anything, or any problems that might be foreseen where the ACZ and the CSN can collaborate on, community related or SMME related. And the quarterly sectoral meetings. These quarterly sectoral meetings is where the 10 members would go into their sectors and basically keep their constituencies informed with regards to any activities, whether linked to the ACZ company or any other activities happening in Atlantis. Thank you, Wahida. This slide speaks to the pro bono capacity building work that was given to the CSN. I should mention that they received pro bono assistance from a law company called Joseph Shaw Attorneys. The external facilitator appointed during 2022-2023, which was Sean Johnston, as well as the ACZ company, giving capacity through the different topics that are highlighted on the slide. Thank you, Wahida. The last slide, just by way of explaining the spend on the CSN, was the appointment of the external facilitator and the amount that is reflected there. And it was key as that he deliver on the points that are mentioned around developing the community leaders, developing and implementing methodologies, developing support mechanisms for both the SMMEs as well as the community. Developing governance frameworks to assist the CSN should any conflicts of interests arise or any disputes arise, and then assisting the CSN and the ACZ company during the build and during our transition phase. Thank you, Ada. Next steps for the CSN is much of what has been in the past, where they would support the ACZ in our endeavors. We use the CSN and they benefit us quite a bit when we're rolling out training programs for school leavers and for youth that have not yet been placed in tertiary institutions. by way of communicating the ACZ's intentions for the new financial year, as well as SMEs who want to transact with government or who are interested in entering into business. We support them through enterprise development programs, and then also just being the key communication conduit between the ACZ and as well as the project partners to the community of Atlantis. And I think lastly, the CSN has really been key in and participated in the growth, the startup in the growth phase of the ACZ company. And some of the drivers that they've been identified as a key driver during this period, and especially in trying to help us mitigate potential challenges that were identified through previous ACZ and IDZ's experiences. And they also assisted the community to be better citizens, to be aware of their rights to participate and be more confident in the ability to do so. And we've seen that come through by community engagements, specifically around the tender briefing sessions around the 18 work packages. Thank you. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Is that all from the agency in terms of the presentation? I think that's the only presentation also that was sent to us, circulated to all of us. And then if there's no further presentation, I believe the HOD is in. I think we are muted, HOD.
Apologies, Chair. I am
audible
now. Audible
yes,
now?
HOD. We started, we thought that, look, what we'll do normally, we will divert from what is normally the norm and by giving you some introductory remarks, but we thought that maybe in the interest of time, we are going to start, and as and when you come in, when the presentation is completed, you can make some few remarks before we may actually, if there are any questions from honorable members, I will ask them to do so, but I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to members and to colleagues. Chair, I am sure that the presentation was circulated to all the members, and I'm sure you've had a glean as to what the ACZ is doing in the Atlantis space and also how the funds have been spent. We are entering a very challenging but also very interesting period for the ACZ, and I think it's quite important that the work we want to do in developing the area connects to the people in the area, and also that it is relevant for the people in the area, and also that it contributes to the development of the people in the area. But more importantly, if we can contribute, Chair, in creating additional jobs in that area, that's so highly needed. And we think this entity plays a significant role in helping that area. Every cent allocated to us can be meaningfully spent in developing the people of the area, but also importantly, attracting additional businesses into the area so that more people can benefit from the work that we do. Chair, I wouldn't like to make any further comments, and I'm sure the team will be able to take questions from the members as appropriate. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, HOD. I want to check whether from honorable members, can I get an indication of those honorable members who would like to ask question? Honorable America.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. I think for some of us who don't serve on other committees, it gives us a overview of what is happening within the entity and its operations. Now, Chairperson, my question is that our community community participation in projects that we do and in the work that we do is of vital importance, and it is pleasing to note that a vehicle had been created to facilitate community participation in the work that is to be carried out. And so I would firstly want to know, one, whether the CSN is the only community structure with whom the entity collaborates and engage with. And secondly, how broadly representative is the committee that has been established of the communities that they supposed to engage with. Now, I also know, pardon me, that 866 Rand and 66 cents is not a lot of money that's being paid to members as a stipend. Regardless of that little amount of money, there often, seems to be sometimes a rivalry within the community to serve on structures like the CSN, notwithstanding the small stipend, but the perceived downstream benefits that may accrue from serving on a structure like that. Did they experience that kind of internal rivalry within the community to serve on the CSN? And secondly, also conflict that may arise within the CSN. What measures are in place and what role does the entity serve in terms of dealing with such conflict that may arise from time to time? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable America. In the absence of further questions from members, I'm going to ask the department as well as the agency to respond.
Thank you very much for the question. So with regards to the first question that was raised, is the CSN the only structure engaged with in Atlantis? No. We have a whole of society approach as the ACZ company. So all structures representing all sectors is engaged. We use the CSN specifically as a communication conduit for one, and one as the recognized, constituted multi-sectoral structure that represents all of Atlantis, because we find that that was a special purpose vehicle that was missing within Atlantis. There are various organizations that are single focused, that doesn't serve the purpose of all of the community, and it becomes a bit difficult when you're dealing with multiple organizations. And that's why one of the requests from the community was that there would be one single purpose vehicle that represents, that's a multi-sectoral that represents the community. I hope that sufficiently answers the first question. The second question related to rivalry. The CSN is elected through the community and thereby eliminates any rivalry. And the Constitution is written in a way that if there's any disputes from a community, with regards to any particular members, as their community members, there's a mechanism for holding members accountable for the role that they fulfill. And through that Constitution, members are held accountable and members are elected or removed from the CSN. So we haven't had any issues around rivalry. There were in the past very strong opinions with regards to the role that the CSN members played, and those roles are then covered in the terms of reference, and we encourage the CSN members to defend their seat on the CSN based on the terms of reference rather than the community's opinion. The last one, how does the CSN deal with conflict? Yes, there's a conflict resolution and management and dispute management policy as part of the constitution that was signed, and that allows for a very structured process with a framework to ensure that all conflict that is raised, whether within the CSN or from the community, there's a framework that can deal with it. I trust that answers the questions.
Do you want to comment on the question of the stipend? Sorry.
The stipend. The stipend initially during our negotiations in 2020 with the CSN, it was agreed that they would receive a similar stipend as correct me if I get the word wrong, but the ward committee members, because they fulfill a similar function. So we found that it would be best to align the stipends to a similar stipend that ward committee members would be getting. And because the engagement with this through the CFA or the community facilitation agreement requires that the CSN meets with the company once a month, we felt it necessary that the stipend justifies the amount of engagement that covers transport when necessary, as well as airtime or data when necessary, to fulfill their function as the communications conduit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Honorable America nodding. I think HOD, I think what you raised was adequately covered, ne?
Correct. Thank you.
On the question of the stipend. Okay, I think the role that is being played by the special economic zone, HOD will correct me if I'm wrong, is similar to what is popularly known as the IDZ, ne?
That's correct, Chair.
That you'll probably find in quite a number of provinces. I know in the Eastern Cape, they've got one, KZN, and a whole lot of others. Basically, those are some of the agencies or activities that are being done by government at provincial as well as national level for purposes of unlocking economic opportunities in various areas. So, and I think the Atlantis is playing exactly such a role. Now, what is the relationship between the Saldanha one, HOD? Just a general question.
So, Chair, in the Eastern Cape, they have two. We have two in the Western Cape, and I'm speaking under correction. It looks like every province has two of these special economic zone. It is a program that is run by the Department of Trade, Development, Trade and Industry, and it is really to try and attract investors into this special economic zone for various reasons, running from industrialization to stimulate manufacturing, to also promote exports to other markets, but in the main to support the growth of the economy. They play a very important role as assets that are owned by the state. And we have oversight as a department of the two SEZ, one being Saldanha, it's now called Freeport Saldanha, and then the Atlantic Atlantis SEZ that we are talking about today. And of course, in the SEZ here in Atlantis, you would know that the city also has part shareholding in the same way as the provincial government has part shareholding, whereas in Saldanha it is wholly owned 100% share by the province. But in the main, they fulfill the same sort of activity, whereas the strategic focus for Atlantis SSA is really more promoting the green economy, and more Saldanha is really about hardcore industrialization in the maritime space, but also more importantly in promoting heavy industrial manufacturing. So that's broadly the difference, Chair. We can go into the specifics at some other time, but broadly that is the difference.
Thank you so much, HOD. I think I got more than I bargained for in terms of your responses. Thank you very much. I see there's Mrs. Johnston.
Thank you very much. I just want to just compliment the inputs that was made by my HOD with regards to explain the differences of the SEZ and the Freeport, but then also what exists in the other provinces. But maybe quite specifically to the CSN, it's a fairly unique structure as far as the SEZs are concerned. Saldanha has traditionally had a very different structure, which tends to be ward-based, whereas the CSN is it's a formalized structure and becoming even more formalized going forward. That represents various constituencies. So it will represent the social constituency, the business constituency, and things like that. And that's in part because this is what the community basically requested. I think that the Atlantis SEZ also represents the evolution of IDZs and SEZs in the country, where we're not looking at sort of the traditional where you put a zone, a special zone in a community, and then it's almost as if the zone is separate or apart from the community and just basically uses the citizens as workers. It's really understanding that it's part of the community, and therefore a constructive and ongoing relationship is required to make sure that there is a solid sort of understanding and a shared sort of values and objectives in making sure that the IDZ and the SEZ is successful. And so I joined a little late, so I'm not quite sure if the CFO had alluded to the fact that there are a number of other SEZs in other provinces that have really struggled because they didn't invest a sufficient time and effort into their relationship with the communities where, for example, you would have investors that want to come in and the community essentially starts to protest against the zone. In part because perhaps the relationship is not as strong as possible as it should be. And where both Atlantis as well as Saldanha Freeport have made in different types of structures in different ways, have placed a lot of emphasis and investment is on that relationship with the community. And I think what Michael as well as Wahira had just demonstrated in their presentation was the benefits of how Atlantis has gained because of that relationship. With COVID, it essentially provided a conduit into the community and made sure that we were able to manage things as positively and constructively as possible, in terms of other objectives of the province around mitigating the impact of COVID on our workers and our citizens. And then two, certainly when we looked at the sort of the land invasions and how the CSN themselves, because they see the SEZ as part of the community, actually rose up to help protect and manage or prevent any potential land invasions, simply because they see the benefit of the SEZ in the community.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive responses that we've got regarding the matter. And I think actually the question was, or the request was for a briefing by Atlantis Special Economic Zone company on the engagement and status of the community stakeholders network and how it impacts on its service delivery goals, including the value for money in terms of expenditure. I think the question as it was requested to be responded to, actually, I think it has more than been answered. And I think that's why maybe you will see that there's actually not so many questions from honorable members. And like I've said, I think we seem to have actually got more than we actually bargained for in terms of the presentation. I think if there are no further questions, I just want to check maybe from the department and from the agency side, are there any closing remarks that you'd like to make? Maybe from the HOD side? Muted, HOD.
So I'm thinking maybe if we allow the entity just a few minutes, if they want to do that before I make my closing remarks, Chair, I think.
Entity.
Chairperson, I think we just want to thank the committee. There was lots of good feedback that we got, and I think we really appreciate it. It's a lot of hard work that goes into this, working with the community, and it has its challenges, but we keep at it.
Thank you.
Chair, from my side, from the department, we thank the chair for the opportunity to engage. But more importantly, we appreciate the work that the Atlantis Society is doing so far as engaging with the community. It is our license to operate, and it is important that we engage with the community, that we are at one with the community. We share the same objectives. We all want the same thing. And if we all continue to work together in this way, it helps for productivity. It also helps for the success of both the entity and also the community. Thank you for the opportunity to engage on this matter, Chair, and I'd like to thank every member for giving us an ear. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Also from our side, we highly appreciate the work that we are doing, and I think this presentation has actually assisted in clarifying quite a number of questions, more than just this one of the community engagement and the community involvement. And it basically has gone in further and elaborate on how involved the department is, as well as the agency in the work of the community. Thank you very much for that. In that regard, you may be released as the committee is going to continue with its other work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Honorable members, and now what is left really before we might go even to our resolutions, if there are any, I want to check from Lizette's side, because the next item will be matters of SAPAC. Are there any update or issues that you'd like to raise to us regarding SAPAC?
Chairperson, I'm going to ask Wasim to update us. Wasim, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. We've revised the departure dates to be from the 1st. As I understand, it will be only for the main conference. Yeah, and that's just the administrative aspect, and after that we wait for the revised travel request that's been, or the travel request has been sent in, and we're just waiting for quotes from potential vendors. So once that is received, then we'll have a clear indication of departure times, etc. I think, Lizette, I think that's everything that is covered.
Yes, thank you, Wasim. Chairperson, as discussed yesterday.
Thank you very much. Then I think also part of the revised, there was the fact that we could not get any response from the provincial legislature as to whether they will be available to receive us for the review that we wanted to take there. So we therefore, in that regard, thought that it's no point just going there, and then we might not have the activity that we are actually planning for. Now, I don't know, honorable members, are they regarding the 3 presentations we've received, basically 2, because on the matter of the Department of Nature, Department of Environmental Affairs and Planning, really that matter is going to be dealt with by whatever relevant department that actually deems it fit for to deal with it, as it has been indicated that it's not a matter we can deal with. Then I think, I don't know, are there any resolution you would like to take on Casidra as well as on this one of the special economic zone? If there is none, we will just accept it as such. If there's nothing, then I just want to get an indication from honorable members, because our last meeting for purposes of looking on the resolutions we've taken regarding Sink Department will be with the human settlement. I think it's somewhere in the middle of September. Now, I just wanted to check. Then after that, we are going to go straight into annual reports. Are we going to do annual reports in person, or we are going to do them in virtual form, or we'll take them as they come?
We'll take as they come, Chair.
Okay, depending on the nature of the beast. If it warrants us that we must sit with them and look them in the eyes, we are going to do that. Otherwise, we will say, no, look, we can deal with it virtually.
Yes,
Okay.
we trust your leadership.
Thank you very much, honorable members. And then in that regard, then that takes us to the end of the meeting. Before we do that, I see Mrs. Klute's hand is up.
Good day, Chairperson. Just to end the discussion or the reason for the first agenda item, can we then just resolve that we will draft a letter with regards to the briefing by the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning and Provincial Treasury and FFC to refer that matter to the relevant, not refer, but for the relevant standing committee to deal with that matter? Can we resolve that
Yes,
as this committee?
Yes, yeah, that letter will be going to the Speaker's office, ne?
Yeah, the Speaker's office can basically, the rule basically states that we advise the Speaker that it's going to be sent to the relevant. So we must just resolve that we will advise the Speaker that it should go to the relevant standing committee.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Then in that regard, honorable members, thank you very much for your availability and for your attendance to the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.